Life speaks. It speaks through struggles and success, through music and messages, the preconceived and the unexpected. Whether you are in the depths of the valley or in the midst of your mountaintop experience, everyone needs to be encouraged from time to time. Here we will share stories of strength, testimonies of triumph, verses of victory, observations, and information meant to touch the heart and uplift the soul, to keep you on your path of purpose and navigate this thing called life with power and authority. This is Andrea L. Hines, and I'm your host for When Life Speaks, here on ALH Broadcasting, an affiliate of the Streaming Inspirational Broadcast Network. I am glad you accepted the invitation to join us tonight. There's something in this broadcast just for you, and if it is going to be a blessing to your life, it will be to someone else as well. So share, tag, start a watch party, and invite someone you know to join us. Then turn down the volume of life and get ready to receive, so that when life speaks, you'll speak life. Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to When Life Speaks. I am your host, Andrea L. Hines, and I am very, very happy to be on with you tonight. We have a very special guest, and when I say special, I mean that in the kindest way. And you'll find out why I say that like I did. But let's kind of wrap up what's been going on. I want to give a shout out, first of all, to the ladies at Faith Harbor Church down in Surf City. They had invited me to be their conference speaker last weekend, and in spite of rain and in spite of all kinds of things that could have stopped us and could have stopped their wonderful program, none of that transpired. The rain was kind of crazy the night before, but the day of, it turned out to be an absolutely beautiful, beautiful day. And I thank them so much, that the women's ministry down there in Surf City. So it was really a good event. I was glad that I was able to go, and 3 generations went. I was there, my daughter was there, my granddaughter was there, and we had a really, really good time. So I talked about boldness and strength and value and trust. And it really was a nice event. And I thank them so much for extending the invitation. What's coming up? What is coming up in November the 11th? And I didn't have my flyer tonight, but I'll be sure to put it up next week or have it out on the website. But November the 11th, Sisters Who Care is having their women's conference, and I'm going to be there. I'm going to have my product there. I'm going to be doing a little bit of vending and a little tiny bit of speaking as well. So those of you who have not heard about that event, or who have heard about it and wanted to register and were not able to register, you can also send me an email to speaklifewithandrea@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to get that information to you. That's speaklifewithandrea@gmail.com. And let's see what we've got on the calendar coming up. The week of the program, the 19th and 20th, we're going to do another 2-parter. I did it one time before. Host Angela Oliphant, who is the host of Whole and Beautiful, that comes on Friday. We had a topic that we discussed, and we did it in 2 parts. Part 1 was on When Life Speaks on Thursday evening, and part 2 was on her program, Whole and Beautiful, and on Friday night. So we're going to do that again. We're going to do that on the 19th and the 20th. And on the 26th, our buddy is back. You know, we haven't had a good chat with Francina Booker in a long time, and she has been one busy lady with her support group and with all of the things that she does for ASCAN. And I wanted her to come back on and update us. I think she has received some wonderful recognition, and I want her to tell us all about what's been going on with her and what's been going on with that organization. So that's coming up around the end of the month. And then we've got good things coming in November that you're going to want to be a part of. So I am glad to have you. I don't know where our folks are tonight. I'm not sure, but I know one thing: we have a very special guest this evening, and I want to tell you. At sometimes, you hear us talking to a mysterious person named Alan. That you hear Pastor Steve on Under Construction. He'll say, "Take us out of here, Alan," and every now and then when we have guests and things, and we'll say, "Bring a guest in, Alan." But you've never seen Alan. You don't get to see Alan. You don't get to see what is behind the scenes. You don't get to hear about some of the things that go into putting on this broadcast. Hey, there's Angie. Oh, Angie, I just got finished talking with you and letting the people know that we're going to do a two-parter on the 19th and the 20th. And if that's not true, let me know now. that's what I put out there. So I don't want to surprise you, but glad to have you on with us tonight. But like I was saying, there are always people behind the scenes. There's always things that you don't see that are happening. When you look at television programs, for example, and they're giving you a shot from behind the camera, and the cameraman is counting down 4, 3, 2, 1. Those are things you don't get to see. You won't see them here either. But those are things that are happening behind the scenes. And I wanted you to meet the man behind the scenes tonight. And I'm not going to say you can ask him any question you want to ask him, because that may be dangerous for all of us. But I did want you to meet him. He is the chairman of the Streaming Media Properties. He is our SIBN connector. He is our guru. He is our friend. And I want you to I can't say ask him to bring in the guests, because he'll be bringing himself in tonight. So meet Dr. Alan D. Chaffins. Dr. Chaffins, there you are.
Good evening, everybody.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. And those are some fine words you said about me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's not difficult to do. It really isn't. You are a great guy, and you've been a pleasure to work with over these 6 years, these last almost 7 years, right? Yeah, going in 6, 7 years. But I wanted people to know a little bit about this journey for you, because this was a dream that you had, internet broadcasting, and tell us about the dream and how you started, what it was like in the beginning for SIBN.net.
Wow. Okay. Um, well, first off, I have 28 years total in broadcasting.
Wow.
All right. I've had my own TV show, I've had my own radio show, and done a lot of different things along the way. And SIBN has been something that I have wanted to do, oh boy, probably for 24 years
Wow.
altogether. I've really had something in the back of my mind. And I've been truly blessed to meet people from all over the world. I've known Asians, Africans, Latino. I mean, the list goes on. I've known people literally from the four corners of the world. And I, being in television for that long, you can kind of see the trends, the direction everything's going. And it became kind of obvious to me at one point that traditional television, land-based television, was not going to be in the future.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it just was not, at least not as we know it.
Right.
And so I was bitten by the internet bug, and I wanted to create a website or create a place where people of all nationalities, all languages, all backgrounds, could all come together in one place at one time and work together. Essentially create Isaiah chapter 2.
Hmm.
Okay. And that was what I wanted to do. And then I was talking with somebody one day, and he said, "Well, Alan," he said, "with all the television experience you already have, why don't you consider the possibility of taking it one step further and developing something on the internet?" And I thought it over and I kicked it around, and quite honestly, I ran from it for a while. And but I went back and I said, "You know what? That's not a bad idea." And I tell people this, and this literally is the truth. Literally, um, I was walking through a grocery store, and one of the name grocers in North Carolina, and by the time I got from one end of the aisle to the other end of the aisle, just with a little cart, going. By the time I got from one end to the other, I had a name, I had a concept, and I had a logo.
Wow.
And I tell people at times, and they look at me funny, but it's honestly the truth. SIBN was born between the peas and the carrots in a grocery store. Literally, literally. And that was 13, just at 13 years ago.
Wow. Wow. Good evening to you, Victoria, and Pastor Sims. Good evening to you as well. Thank you for being with us tonight as we talk to our friend, Dr. Alan Chaffins. Alan, let me ask you this. When you have a dream that is bigger than you are, and that's birthed between the peas and the carrots, and you're not sure, you're unsure of next steps, you're a forerunner in what it is that you're trying to do, you know that it came from God, you know that it's bigger than you are. How do you handle I'm not going to say the fear of it, but how do you handle any apprehension that you might have, particularly when something is this new and this big, and there are a lot of balls up in the air and a lot of things that could happen. How do you handle that possible anxiety?
Well, first off, if you don't have apprehension, then something's wrong.
Okay.
Okay. When you take on a project that is bigger than yourself, there's got to be some level of apprehension inside there somewhere. And to be honest, this goes back to one of the classes I teach in the school. There's a three-step process. A three-step process in virtually any project or any idea or anything that you're trying to develop. And to be honest, it's in the Bible. It's in the book of Genesis. When the brothers, Joseph's brothers, were getting kind of irritated with him because he was running his mouth a little too much, there are three things that they said, and those three things are perfect with developing this. The first one is behold the dreamer. All right. Uh, because you have to evaluate yourself. You've got to evaluate yourself internally to make sure you've got the makeup to make this thing happen, as well as the resources of the people, the ideas around you. The second thing, it says, kill the dreamer. Let's kill the dreamer, it says. And what you have to do there is remove the human element, remove your personality, remove your concerns, your fears, remove that from the project so that the project has an opportunity to take on a life of its own. And then the third one is, let's see what becomes of the dream. In other words, evaluate. Evaluate, evaluate, evaluate. Always be evaluating where you are, where you're going. Did you meet this objective? Did you not meet that one? So that you have the ability to keep a firm grasp, if you can, on the project at hand. And that's really what happened with SIBN. And it's a long way from the conclusion. we're going through that big expansion right now, and it's taken a lot.
Hmm. Hmm. What has been the greatest challenge through the year? And I know through the years, and I know those have changed because you are not at this point, of course, where you were in the beginning. So I know your beginning challenges, your early challenges were a lot different than what you may be experiencing now. But tell us a little bit about that and how you handle those challenges, because I think for everybody who listens or views this, um, I think it is applicable across the board when you're dealing with those projects or those visions that you have that are birthing things that are bigger than you. Tell us about what challenged you during that time and how you've handled it.
Well, there've been a lot of
Short version.
challenges. Um,
I saw you taking a deep breath there.
but in the early years, in the first few years of SIBN's existence, the main challenge then was getting people used to the idea that there was such a thing as internet television. Because at that point, internet television was like a complete mystery that nobody understood, and they thought that hey, I put a I put a 30-second clip on Facebook. That's internet television, and it wasn't. So we had to educate the public. Really, that was one of the bigger initial challenges. We had to educate the public on what was internet television was all about,
Mhm.
and then going along in those early years, we were actually at that time, because there really wasn't a lot of people out doing what we do. And so what happened, we actually at one point were in the top 3 of internet broadcasting networks in the world. And it was number 1 in the United States for a long time. But part of that was because we were new and everybody was excited trying to figure out what we were doing. And it was a very fascinating time. And then what happened was the next challenge, I guess we'll call it, was that there were people who thought that they knew what we were doing, and they would come in and they would do everything they could do to copy us. And I know, what is it they say, that being copied is one of the greatest forms of flattery or whatever, and that's fine. But what was happening was this was a brand new industry, brand new. And you had these people that were kind of muddying the water because they were telling everybody they knew how to do everything, and in reality was they didn't.
Mhm.
And so we had to kind of overcome that hurdle. And then finally, the other hurdle is that you have so many of the big names, YouTube, CBS, NBC, the big giants that are now doing everything they can do to take over.
Mhm.
The internet is the future. You got a lot of these networks that are out there now selling off little stations here and little stations there in order to gain all the money they can, in order to make the biggest splash they can on the internet.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, now we're competing with the fact that you got all these giants with massive amounts of capital, and they can do pretty much anything they want to. And so sometimes that can be a little bit of a difficulty as well.
Mhm.
So
Tell
there's
me,
a lot of different things involved.
mhm, what is in your years of building this
What are you
this
trying to say?
entity? You know me, I don't try. You know how we operate. but what has been one of the most rewarding things, and I say one of because I know there have been many things, whenever you have a dream and you see even bits and pieces of it begin to come into fruition,
Mhm.
it just, it does something to your heart. And I know this is your baby. But is there anything in particular that you can think of? I know that there are things, even in my short journey, that I think of that have been not necessarily turning points, but things that have just nudged me and said, "Yeah, you're doing the right thing. You're doing this the right way." What can you think of that has happened with you in this whole journey and in this process?
I can think of a couple things. First off, uh, a few years back, we started to do a lot of tracking as far as where people were coming from watching the shows, how long they were staying, those types of things. And we began to see people in China and, some of the Asian countries, and they were coming in continuously. Korea was another one. And, I mean, it was great, but I was curious. And come find out what was happening was that they were children, young people in these different countries, and they were learning English by watching our programming.
Wow.
So, that was certainly, something that said, yeah,
Yeah.
this is beginning to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then I would say that, people that know me realize pretty quick that the broadcasters, you know, kind of become like a family to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are a couple that somehow or other kind of got themselves in a position where they're treated almost like a daughter, and there are others that are very close to me. And I'll even say this, I consider you one of those close people. I really do. But so it kind of filled a couple gaps, filled a gap here and a gap there. So that was kind of a nice thing. But I guess the other part, I really wanted in the beginning days, the early days of SIBN, I really wanted SIBN to fulfill to some degree the prophecy of Isaiah chapter 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so it talked about all the people coming together and working together, and let's go to the mountain and learn all these things. And so we began to see that people were actually working together.
Mm-hmm.
There were people that were talking back and forth. We had shows coming in from Canada, we had shows coming in from Congo, all over, and it didn't matter to them who was who, who spoke what language, what color somebody's skin was. And it even got to the point because SIBN right now has approximately 40, 43, I think 44 different Christian denominations, all working together in some facet within the network.
Mm. Wow.
There's also something like 100 to 120 different languages or different language groups that are involved in some fashion with us as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it actually is beginning to take on the appearance of what was spoken of, in Isaiah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, because that was really the objective to begin with. So, and
Mm-hmm.
now, and I don't know why this is, but people are calling me things like OG. People, you know, yeah, I'm the original gangster here. I mean, I'm being called an old head. I'm being called all these things. I'm like, okay, yes, internet broadcasting as an industry has only been around approximately 16 years on a serious basis.
Uh-huh.
And we've been around for approximately 13 of those 16. So
Awesome. Awesome.
this is why
If
we
any
started.
If anyone out there listening in has a question for Alan, be sure to put it in the comment section. We don't often get to talk to him like we're talking to him tonight. So if you have a question for him, be sure to put it in and we will try to get him to answer it. Um, there have got to be times, Alan, and I know it happens with all of us and those of us particularly who have ventured out and are doing things that we may have 2 years ago or even a month ago considered outside of our comfort zone. When you're working outside of your comfort zone and you're embarking on something that is new for you, exciting though it may be, when something doesn't go right, it can throw you. It can throw you and it puts you in a place of doubt and it puts you in a place of just, questioning yourself, self evaluation, and all of that. Am I really doing what God wants me to do? Is this the right thing to do? And you go through all of that. What do you do and what have you done through the years that has really kept you pushing, just kept you going, kept you moving, just giving you the tenacity not to stop? What has that been for you?
Well, I will say this: the biggest enemy is doubt. All right, because you have something that you've started to do, you're moving it down the road at some speed or other. You have to anticipate the fact that something's going to happen somewhere. It just has to. And so when it does, you have a couple of options. Option number one is you can get mad and get angry, and then when you get mad and angry, then fear steps in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or you can say, well, maybe I need to think about this. I got to decide what to do, that type of thing. And when you get in an attitude like that, that's when doubt steps in. So you got these little, antagonists out there. So depending on how you respond, depends on which antagonist is going to come after you. All
Mm-hmm.
right. And so, yeah, there it's been a fight. It has been a fight. And one thing I realized early on, though, is that if you're doing what SIBN has been doing for this long, and you're affecting this many lives all over the world, daily, hourly, you got to expect that you're going to get hit left and right. All
Yeah.
right? You got to expect it because we have a great big enemy out there that would love nothing better than to dismantle SIBN yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so when something goes wrong and something attacks and so forth, I'm almost grateful. I know that sounds great. And the thing is, at the time, I'm not feeling so grateful. But, after I evaluate it later, I say, well, you know what? We must be doing something right because, in a war, you spend your greatest number of assets against the enemy that means you the most harm. And if you got an enemy that doesn't going to do is not going to do anything, not going to hurt you, you don't mess with it. You just let it be and let it wear out. And so the fact that we're getting hit as hard as we are continuously tells me that we're doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'll say this: I mean, it's not easy. When something goes wrong, I it always ends up on my desk somehow, somehow. And when something goes wrong, I have to sit back and I have to look at it, not because I'm thinking about doing something different, but I have to decide how I'm going to respond because there's a lot of people who are looking to see how I'm going to react to something.
Mm-hmm.
All right. SIBN affects a lot of lives in a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got to be careful how I respond because how I respond is going to be based a lot upon what's going on and it's going to make decisions for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
who are going to look at that and say, well, if he's nervous, if he's scared, there must be a problem.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So that's how I respond to everything.
Let me ask you about one thing that is going on now that is brand new. And I want you to tell the listeners a little bit about the Internet Broadcast University. Tell us what that's about and where you hope to go with that.
Over the years, over the last 13 years, I've learned a lot about internet broadcasting. Over the last 28, I've learned about broadcasting as a whole. And so I've had people come at me all the time. Alan, how do I do this? How does that work? What do we do with this over here? And then there's a lot of people saying, with everything you've learned and all the experience you have, why aren't you teaching it somewhere? So I said, well, you know what? When you hear that so many times, eventually you got to sit down and say, well, you know what? Maybe they're right. And so the idea was actually formed about 3 or 4 years ago. And I wanted to pick the right time to bring it out. And so, again, internet broadcasting is brand new. Brand new. I mean, 16 years. I mean, relatively speaking, that's brand new. And so there are a lot of people out there who are putting money into a project because they think they know how to make it work. And then when they find out that they don't know how, then they get discouraged, they get upset, they get mad, they walk away, they lose the money, and they lose interest in the project that could have been a very good one.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the idea was formed to create Internet Broadcasting University. Right now, today, we are the only source for an education solely in the internet broadcasting. We have currently 2 groups of students. Altogether, we have about 29 students right now.
Mm.
And what they're learning to do is to be a responsible broadcaster in this brand new industry, which is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. They get a certificate saying that they have completed successfully this 13 week curriculum that we put together. And they work with people who've got a lot of experience. I teach a number of the classes personally. And one of the reasons I did it, other than the fact that it is necessary, because you've got people, again, that are walking away and losing their money because they just didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
You've got churches and organizations that are being taken advantage of by people that are claiming to know what they're doing. And then you find out, sadly, afterward that they don't. And then the church is in a bad position. Mm-hmm. So all this is necessary. But the real reason, the bottom line is IBU, Internet Broadcasting University, is to a large degree my legacy.
Mm.
All right, it is my legacy because I'm taking everything I ever learned, whether it be land-based or internet-based, everything I've ever learned in broadcasting, and I am providing through this structure and through the help of good instructors, including yourself, Dr. Hines. I am providing a means that people can learn early on how to do what they need to do, mm-hmm. how to be responsible in what they do. And we teach all kinds of classes. And one of them that's going to be taught, is being taught to the first group, is broadcast ethics. Doing the right thing. What is the right thing? All of those, with relation to broadcasting. Mm-hmm. So internet broadcasting is growing. It is very much alive. And a lot of people are really looking at it for the first time. And like I said, we're the only one doing it.
Mm-hmm.
No one else out there.
Mm-hmm. All by mm-hmm. There's a lot to be said for that, Alan, and there's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of of looking back and evaluating and thinking things through. And you gotta have the capacity for it. You just gotta have the capacity for it. And we who are a part of the SIBN network are grateful that you have the capacity for it. I want to say I want to say this. It wasn't just about you being able to come on and kind of giving us a peek behind the scenes. And before I go on, I want to tell those who are listening and those who will listen to the replay, if there are things that you want to ask Alan that you did not put in the comment section, but you still have a question, even if it's about the university, IBU, or whatever, starting a show, whatever it might be, please feel free to email me at speaklifewithandrea@gmail.com, and I will get that information over to Alan if I cannot answer it myself. But the second reason that I wanted to have you on um, was to thank you. I really sincerely want to thank you because I entered into this without really knowing what I wanted to do or how I wanted to do it. I knew kind of how I wanted to do it because, like you, I wasn't between the peas and the carrots, but I was at a place where God laid it out for me when I was invited into a network to be a part. He gave me the show, he gave me the tagline, he gave me these things, and he has graciously given me wonderful people to interview over the years. But what I appreciate most about you, number one, you're always willing to try to make it happen. There's
Mhm.
nothing that I've ever brought to you that you have said, "Oh no, we can't do that." You've always taken the time to say, "Okay, let me be sure that I understand what it is you want to do, and then let's talk about it. Let's think through how we can make it happen." So you've always been willing to do that. The second thing is you have a way to gently push. And I say that because I started in radio only. I was only going to do radio. And
Mhm.
when things began to transition over into the StreamYard platforms and the other platforms that we've had in the past, and you would say, you really need to go live with this, and I'd go, nah, nobody wants to see me. I don't want to see anybody, and let's just stick with this radio. We got a good thing going with this radio, and you'd say, okay, and a little bit later you'd say, it really would be a good idea if you move this over and transition. And my wonderful co-host, one of them is on tonight, Victoria, who now has her own show.
Yeah.
And Ruth, we were talking about it, and they were like, "Well, why not? Why don't we do it?" So gently pushing and kicking and screaming, I I took it on. I have loved it. I have been thankful for it. We continue to meet great people and get it done. But I publicly wanted to thank you, for the fight, because you have taken on some battles that will benefit not just those who are with you now, but have benefited in the past. I see, and and I don't know what it means to you, but I have seen growth in you in terms of the things that you are doing and the things that you are trying to do to help all of us who have been a part of this journey. I believe that it can only get bigger and it can only get better from here. You're going up. You're doing some great things. I think the university is going to yield more for you than you even imagine. And I just wanted to take a moment to say we appreciate you.
Well, I hope that your arm has quit hurting because I know it took a whole lot of twisting over the years to get you into television. So I'm glad that it stopped hurting finally. But the thing about it is The internet's not going away.
Right.
All right. And internet television is not going away.
Mm-hmm.
And we are some of the early people in this new industry. Lord only knows where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we're the groundbreakers. And that's kind of fun. I heard this, years ago. And somebody said that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I
I
got to
get.
admit, I have a lot of fun with it sometimes. I have to admit that SIBN, the internet, is like a giant playground for me. It really is. I enjoy myself. I have a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I took on some of the traits of my grandfather. All right, my grandfather was the greatest man I ever met, and one of the things that they said about him was that he never met a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I tend to, I guess, follow some of those traits. And I love meeting people. I don't care where they're from.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I don't care what their beliefs are. I don't care where they're going. I don't care what their background has been. I enjoy meeting people. I always have. I always will.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, well, that was fun. But anyway, we have met some fascinating people over the years, and some very interesting people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Sally Meadows out of Western Canada, is one of them. And there's a whole list. And I know of one that is going to be coming eventually as a guest on one of our shows here sometime in November.
Mm-hmm.
This SIBN has allowed me over the years to meet people. I met an individual, worked with him for a good long time regarding some of the things of SIBN, and he was an advisor to the then President Clinton, Bill Clinton. So I had an opportunity to do some broadcast things with White House people, State Department people. The list goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And Pastor Sims, if you're still listening out there, watching out there, he and I talked about the fact that people's steps are ordered in a certain way.
Yeah.
And it took a while, took a couple of broke legs and maybe a couple of sprained ankles and things, but my steps finally got ordered in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm eternally grateful for it. But this is where I belong. This is where I belong. This is where I'm going to stay. And yes, I'm going to be teaching probably a lot more because Dr. Hines, we're getting ready to form the third
Third
group,
class. Mm-hmm.
third class. We're right now just within the next few days going to begin taking students in from the third class. So anybody listening out there, seriously, uh, this is where I belong. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm very happy. Yes, I'm challenged daily, hourly. I'm challenged, but again, I'm grateful for the challenge because I know that I'm doing the right thing.
That's good. That's good. Alan, do you have one last word of wisdom before we close out tonight? Something that you would leave our audiences with who may be embarking on something greater and bigger than they are?
If you have something that you know is pushing you, I didn't say someone, I said something, some idea, something inside you that's pushing you. Number one, don't be afraid of it. Because if you can run, but you can't hide, it's going to catch up to you again and again and again until you do what you're supposed to do.
That's
All
it.
right. And take that three-step process. Behold the dreamer, kill the dreamer, see what becomes of the dream.
That's
And
it.
I thank God every day that, you know what? A famous quote is the strength of a man is not in how many blows he can deliver, but how many blows he can take and still get up and stand.
That's it.
And
That's it.
I thank God every day for that.
Thank you. We thank you, Alan. We thank you, and we thank you to still be standing. And we just appreciate all of the things that you have done for so many. We can talk about ALHB in particular, but for so many people. And I just appreciate you. And like I said, guys, if you have anything that you want to say to Alan or any questions that you have for him, you can be sure to send them to me at speaklifewithandrea@gmail.com, at speaklifewithandrea@gmail.com. Dr. Alan D. Chaffins, thank you so, so much for being with us tonight. And look, guys, you come on back next week. I'm here every Thursday at 7 p.m. And I would tell you what I'm going to have next week, but I'm not sure. Um, Angie just gave me different dates than I had in the beginning for our two-parter. So we'll see, but it's always going to be good. It's always going to be informational. It's always going to be something that will encourage you. So I want you to be sure to tune in again next week. Turn down the volume of life and get ready to receive so that when life speaks, you'll speak life. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Alan.
It's been a privilege. A privilege. You have a
Good
good night.